What's up gamers, my name is Fox, and in this video we're going to have a look at the second trial of Dawntrail, which is called Everkeep Extreme, where we face off against Tumoil. Before you start the fight, make sure your light parties are assigned, and that's pretty much everything we need for this fight. So let's have a look at the mechanics. Like most fights, also Tumoil starts off with a big rate white, which is called Actualize. This will repeat of course multiple times throughout the fight. The first proper mechanic of the fight is called Multidirectional Divide. It's a cross that will leave behind yellow lines. Those yellow lines will trigger after a while, expanding throughout the arena but leaving small safe spots. While all of this is happening, Tumoil will also cast either forward half or backward half. This is an additional mechanic that will also come multiple times throughout the fight, so let's have a look how it works. As the cast name is already indicating, Tumoil will either jump forward or backwards. When he lands, he will then turn around facing the arena depending on how he jumped. This is very important because it will obviously mean that the upper part or the downward part, depending on how he jumped, will be unsafe. Yet at the same time also one of the floating swords on his back will be glowing. This means that that half part of the arena will also be unsafe. To determine the safe side for forward jump, during the cast you move onto the side that has the glowing sword because he will be turning around and the sword will be changing the side. If it is backward jump, you obviously have to move to the opposite side because he will remain in position and not turn around. That's how I personally solved it. Obviously everyone has their own way of solving it, but I think this is quite simple. So then both mechanics will combine, leaving one very small safe zone throughout the arena. After that, we will have the same cast again, Multidirectional Divide, but this time it is accompanied with two tank busters. So basically the party will stack behind Tumoil while the tanks pick up the two tethers and make sure to be in a safe spot away from each other and of course pop some cooldowns because they're big AoE tank busters. Dawn of an Age will mark the first phase transition in which the arena is transformed into a small platform. The first time this happens, it is also copied and accompanied by 4 additional small platforms. The cast named Volok will then summon swords onto those 4 platforms, which is followed up by Sync. Once this cast has finished, 2 of the 4 platforms will light up, which are always next to each other by the way, and they will copy the sword positions of the swords on those platforms onto your platform basically. So what you need to do here is to basically combine the 2 platforms that are lighting up and then deduct where the safe spot is. Now this is not everything happening because Tumoil will also cast half full, a cast that will come up multiple times throughout the fight, which really simply put means one half of the arena is unsafe. It will be indicated by the sword glowing on his back. So once you deduct the safe spot and you're on the right side, this is where both mechanics happen at the same time to resolve them. The next big mechanic is called Greater Gateway. It spawns tethers that connect each platform to the main one. It might look confusing at first, but it actually isn't. There's a total of 3 different types of tethers. First we have the fire tethers, which will create a fire AoE on your platform depending on how they connect, and they're covering 3 rows in total, the one that it is connecting being the middle one, and makes them unsafe for the upcoming mechanic. The wind tethers simply cause a knockback on the whole platform, so here you either need to position yourself properly to get knocked into the safe spot, or you will have to use arm's length, which is honestly much easier, or shortcast of course if you're a caster. Last one are the blue tethers, very simple, they're just causing simple line AoEs going across your platform. To then simply put, look for the safe spot, make sure to first look at either if it's knockback or fire, because fire will limit the amount of safe spots already. If it is knockback, you simply only need to look at the blue tethers, know where they're going through, and then press your, of course, knockback immunity. While with fire, you move to the safe line basically and then check where the blue line is coming from to then be on one of the 2 available safe spots. Once this mechanic has resolved, every player gets a yellow pyramid marker above their head, Titan says hi by the way, which indicates a spread, as you might remember. So make sure every player has their own square on the platform. The next cast of Actualize will return you to the normal arena. It's time for my favorite mechanic called Projection of Triumph. There's a lot going on, but don't worry, we're gonna go over everything now. First, we notice a lot of small sword circles that appear. These serve as trigger points for the lines that are coming from the outside of the arena. If you look at the edges, you will notice two different looking lines. One of them has small orbs, while the other one has pink donuts. The orb lines will trigger a small AoE explosion once they pass over the sword, leaving a safe spot in between the swords. While of course the donuts will create a donut-like AoE with a safe spot on the swords basically. Keep in mind, Zoral Jar will summon 4 lines in total, so this mechanic takes some time to resolve. This by itself is pretty simple and straightforward, but it becomes a lot harder when Zoral Jar starts casting either backward half or forward half while these lines are passing through the arena. This means you have to dodge whatever Zoral Jar is cooking while also making sure to dodge the donut or orb AoEs caused by the lines. Here is how I personally resolve this mechanic, so maybe this will help some people. So I first check where the donut line is coming from. Then I position myself into one of the 4 swords closest to Zoral Jar towards that donut line. Then this will allow me to dodge the first donut AoE by standing in the sword. Then I move in between the 2 swords inwards to the hitbox to be safe for the orb explosions. Slightly before the second line will reach my position, Zoral Jar will start casting backward or forward half. I dodge another line by either standing inside of the sword or next to them depending on which line was the next one, but I also already moved towards the side that he will jump, so either forward or backwards. And once that third line has resolved, I position myself to correctly dodge the big AoE that is caused by Zoral Jar. And after that, it's a matter of opening my eyes and moving accordingly, because the last line will either be, donuts or the exploding orbs. I honestly struggled a lot with this mechanic at first, but once I found that consistent way to handle it, it became a lot less of a struggle. Next up comes again the big raid white, which is still named Actualize. On to another very big and important mechanic, which is called Projection of Tumoil. Every player gets a ring. A slowly moving line will also spawn in the north part of the arena. Moving through this line will cause a big AoE that needs to be soaked by 3 or optimally 4 players. The proper way and ideal way to handle this mechanic is as follows. This is where the light parties come into play, because you will split up onto each side of Zoral Jar and then continuously move through the line while you obviously are being healed up in between every explosion. Now keep in mind, triggering your circle will cause a debuff on every player that soaks the AoE. The order can be whatever, but what I most commonly saw was tank healer, melee and range DPS. And keep in mind, this is quite heavy in terms of damage, so make sure tanks have some form of mitigation for the group and healers have their big cooldowns available. If you're struggling with my explanation, which I don't think is that great, just check out the video. It is very clear how to handle this in my opinion, and honestly, besides the healing, it is not that difficult. So what would any expansion or fight be without players finding a way to make one mechanic irrelevant or cheese it? No, I'm not talking about LB or anything like that. I'm talking about a way of handling this that makes it brain dead. I don't like it as much, but it exists. If you see a party finder line cheese, this is how they're going to do it. Now, please, as a disclaimer, this might get patched out at some point, so maybe this is not possible anymore. So please keep that in mind. Basically what happens is that the tank drags Zoral Jar to the very south corner of the arena, while the whole group is waiting then for the slow moving line to reach them. This feels like ages, by the way. Once the line though is very close, you just move into the edge of the arena completely. You just take that bleeding debuff, but you will be able to dodge the line, because now this is the fun part, it just disappears before it reaches the edge of the arena. It just stops, and that's just really funny to me, I'm sorry, but this makes the mechanic completely irrelevant. Besides that, the healers still need to heal the party, through the bleeding debuff. Now, with all of this really funny thinking here, like funny talk, I forgot that there is actually, towards the end of this mechanic, there's a tank buster. I'm sorry, but it's just really funny to me that this works. So there is a tank buster. Now, if you do the cheese, make sure you're very far away from your party. It's AoE. And please use your invuln here. This is where I saw most tanks using it. And yeah, it will also be there if you don't cheese it. But there is a tank buster. Alright, back to being serious. Dawn of Enrage will again transform the arena into a smaller platform, while this time only spawning one other platform. You will now be seeing enumerations on either DPS or supports, and I suggest lining them up on the edge of the platform closest to the other platform in the good old either tank healer healer tank or healer tank tank healer order. Then what is important here, this is really important, is that the person with the enumeration is in front of the person stacking for the enumeration. And they need to be in front and in a straight line, because the person stacking will be launched into the direction in which they are aligned with their partner. As you might see on my POV here, I was sweating really hard on this pull. So now the party is split up and the next cast is called Volok. Two big swords will be spawning on the two platforms. And this mechanic is pretty easy, just don't stand in the sword. And as far as I can tell, it's basically always be in the front. The side which is safe is decided by the sword's position. Zoral will cast Sync then, meaning the two swords will overlap, creating the other side of the arena to be unsafe, or the back of the arena to be unsafe. This is really simple, just you will understand exactly how this works when you see it. We again will also then see the yellow pyramid marker, so make sure to spread out on the proper 4 squares. During the resolvement of that mechanic, you will have a green wind AoE appear on the arena, which allows you to jump to the other platform. This is important because Zoral Ja will now cast either forward half or backward half. This means one of the two halves of the party will have to use the wind AoE to jump over to the other platform to dodge the move. Now keep in mind, the AoE will launch you towards where you moved into it. So you gotta move, always in a straight line from the other platform kinda into it so that you get launched onto the platform. Next up, we just have something called Duty's Edge, which is literally just a fat stack line. And I believe tanks need to be in the front, so make sure to use, cooldowns and health mitigating. Don't let your healers do it all by themselves. After that, we will be having Burning Chains, causing players to be, guess what, chained to each other. Now, this is important. The half of the party that did not jump for the forward or backward move, they have to use now the wind AoE to move to the other platform. Reason is that when you use the wind AoE, you actually get a debuff causing you to die if you move back into it. So make sure to not use it for fun or accidentally walk into it, because you will die from that. The next actualized cast will take you back to the full arena then, and we will be again seeing Project of Triumph. The core mechanic here is the same, but we have a few small changes. Instead of forward and backward, Zoral Ja will cast half circuit, making half of the arena unsafe, but also adds his swords again into the mix. They will either be in the middle of the hitbox, meaning that you obviously need to be outside of the hitbox, or they will be floating on the outside of the hitbox, meaning you need to be inside of the hitbox, while obviously still being on the right side of the arena to dodge the other cast. Towards the end of this mechanic, we will be having Regicidal Rage, which are two tank buster tethers. So make sure the tanks pick those up and they are not clipping the party with it. And I'm gonna be honest, this has always looked extremely chaotic to me. I just suggest to have your eyes open and not overlap your party, and if your party members stay away from your tank. And if you have the tether as a party member, stand still. I hope the tank will pick it up, honestly, because they are supposed to do that. You will also again see projection of Tumoil with a slow moving line, but it's also slightly different. Zoral will cast half full 3 times instead of doing nothing basically. So you have to be on the right side while executing the mechanic. If you're doing this properly, make sure to not pop your debuffs while half full is happening, because you might be overlapping with other people that are not prepared to soak the AoE. So just move back to your side after it's over and then continue, doing your debuff stuff, because it's really, you have a lot of time, you don't need to rush it out. You've now basically seen everything of the fight. There's nothing new, so don't worry, you also should be close towards the end here. We will have again Dawn of Enrage, now the third time, which is the same as the first one, but you will not have half of the arena being save or unsafe. You will have pyramid markers spread again after the, sword sinking. This is again followed by the big stack line, so it is important that the healers survive, or that everyone basically survives. And then you will see greater gateway, which are the tethers, the wind, fire and blue tethers. Exactly the same as far as I know, as you saw it the first time. I do believe after that it is the Enrage, or maybe there are some more AoE casts, but basically this is the end of the fight. That's it, that's the end of the guide. Thank you so much for watching. I know this was a little bit longer, but this fight also definitely was a bit more difficult than the first fight in my opinion. I really like it by now. I farmed it already a few times, I really enjoy it. I think it's a great fight, great design, and honestly, I hope you guys of course also will get it clear, because obviously it is for some good right side gear. If you enjoyed it and if it helped you out, make sure to leave a like, and also you can subscribe to the channel of course, because I will be uploading more guides in the future, possibly for Savage, but I will also be focusing on making class-oriented guides, mostly melee DPS, but maybe I can expand my arsenal a little bit and do even more stuff. So if you think that's a great idea or you enjoy that, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. I'm of course wishing you an amazing rest of your day wherever you live.